Welcome to those just joining us. Hello, everybody. And once again, welcome to Talking Baseball with the Chicago Dogs. My name is Rich Janner. I'll be your host here. And with the shutdown still in place, everyone knows we can't play baseball, coach baseball, or watch live baseball, but we can talk baseball. So that's exactly what we plan to do here for the better part of 45 minutes today. This is our second episode in our Talking Baseball series. 2 weeks ago, we talked with former Chicago Dogs pitcher Casey Crosby, who is now in the Los Angeles Dodgers organization. And today, we are very pleased to welcome a father-son duo, the manager of the Chicago Dogs, Butch Hobson, and his son, Casey Hobson, the left-handed hitting first baseman for the Chicago Dogs. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Good to see you, man. Good to see everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for many of us, myself included, our very first experience with the great game of baseball involved our dads. And our dads were often our first catch partners, our first T-ball coaches, and in many cases, the people that introduced us to the game. And so, Butch, I'll start with you. Based on my math, when you were managing the Boston Red Sox, Casey was maybe just a toddler. So, can you tell us kind of what it was like to have your son at the ballpark, and, what did you have him do, and how did he interact with players and everything along those lines?
Yeah, KC grew up with I think he came into this world with a bat in his hand. We bought him one of these little Mickey Mouse styrofoam bats that he could hit the little styrofoam ball with. He walked around the house all the time, beating everything up. Actually, we were in spring training, and we lived in the same complex with Carl Yastrzemski. And Carl loved his swing at that point in time when I think you were 2, KC, something like that, or 3. And Yaz gave him the name Bam Bam because he walked around with that little styrofoam bat hitting everything. He pretty much knew at an early age that baseball was going to be a love for him, and it has been that.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And for you, KC, I think a lot of the Chicago Dogs fans know your dad here as a manager, but, you're new to the team this year. Can you share with anybody listening kind of your journey and your path through the game of baseball here and how you ended up with the Chicago Dogs here this year?
Yeah, I was fortunate and blessed enough to be drafted out of high school by the Toronto Blue Jays organization. I believe I spent 6.5 years or so with them from about 2009 to 2016. And I got released in 2016 and actually went and played independent ball in the Atlantic League for Lancaster with my dad. And then, I bounced around I was with the White Sox for a very short 2-week period. Then I was with the Giants for about a year. I think the opportunity this year, and especially with some of the rule changes in the Atlantic League that I tested out last year, I think it was a better opportunity to go play, not only, for my dad, but in a league where I think it's starting to, you see a lot of guys come out of the American Association now. And that's pretty much, brought me to the Dogs. Obviously, my dad being the manager is, I wouldn't change that. And, best manager I've ever had. And it's not just because he's my dad, it's because he knows players and he knows how to handle players and, light a fire up under them. But he does it in a fun way too. So that's basically been my, professional journey. And, like I said, my dad said, I've been carrying around a bat ever since I could walk, basically. So that's basically from the start out, when I could walk, I've been wanting to play baseball.
And obviously, Casey, you're a left-hander. Did you remember Dad putting that ball and bat in your left hand, or is that something that's maybe genetic? Or
no, that's all me. I think he wanted me to be right-handed so I could play different positions. I could play third or something. But left-handed was all me, and obviously I didn't have just whatever I picked up, and I became left-handed. I know my dad wanted me to, probably throw right-handed so I could play a little different positions, but it is what it is. I'm a little backwards anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most dads might not agree with my thinking about that because it seems like everybody, when they have a son, they put the ball in his left hand.
Exactly right.
We did experiment with a little bit switch hitting, when he was younger, and But he just had a beautiful natural left-handed swing, and he got a plus arm. Probably, we're hoping that maybe see him on the mound a little bit for an inning or two here during the season. With a 23-man roster, sometimes you have to rely on your pitching, your position players that have pitched before to maybe come in and give you an inning or here or there because you're a little bit short in your bullpen because of the 23-man roster thing. So, we see him on the mound. He's got a plus arm.
There you go. There you go. And, Casey, when did you first realize that, professionally you wanted to follow your dad's footsteps into baseball? I mean, I've got friends that are plumbers and carpenters and teachers, and sometimes their sons will follow them into the business, so to speak. And then there's other families where the son just goes in a totally different direction. When did it kind of hit you that, hey, baseball is where I want to spend my life as well?
I don't know if, like you said, you've had buddies whose dad or their kid follows their footsteps. I just think, growing up around the game, I just thought that's basically what, I've obviously loved it and wanted to do it. And, but really I never looked at it as like my dad was different than anybody else. It's just what he did. Baseball is what he did. And, obviously, loving the game and, and being pretty decent at it, I at a pretty early age, I'd figured, I want to play professional baseball, and that's what I wanted to do. Sure.
And Butch, you've had an opportunity to coach your son in the past. I know you shared that with me previously. So, what's it like coaching your son? I'm sure there's some youth coaches that are listening. And of course, most of these youth coaches coach their son and deal with those challenges. So, are you harder on them? Are you easier on them? What advice would you give to some of these youth coaches that are trying to feel their way through coaching their own son?
Well, for me, I mean, I know at the little league level and sometimes even at, when they get to high school and, they're playing the travel balls, a lot of players, play for their dads. Their dads are the coach. And, in our situation, I helped the coaches that KC played for growing up. But for me to be able to say, as a professional and been in the game as long as I have and have a chance to manage your son is pretty awesome. And this will be our second go round from 2016. And I know, Jim Bennett at Fargo, TJ, KC played with TJ a little bit. TJ played for his dad last year. And it's a pretty cool thing. It's, it's like KC knows what I do. I mean, he knows my thought process and during the course of the game. And I'll do something stupid every once in a while just to shake things up. But he's seen that before. But it's an awesome feeling, and I'm just, really, really excited that that we're going to be in the same dugout again this year.
And for you, KC, I think everyone that knows independent baseball knows sometimes a manager will get in a dispute with an umpire. And, when you see your dad get worked up out there, I mean, are you thinking, come on, Dad, come off the field? Or are you thinking, hey, have at it? Or how does that hit you?
I think he's been doing that kind of stuff for so long that you kind of get used to it. So, but usually it's, usually it's warranted. And, all umpires are, they're human, so they make mistakes. And I think, I'll probably learn this from my dad. When I get mad more, when I've been tossed before at an umpire, it's more because, instead of just saying, yeah, they made a mistake, they said, no, I'm wrong and they're right. So, and that's what really, I know irks my dad a lot, and really me too. If someone says, hey, I screwed up, usually I say, okay, thanks. And I walk away. But the guys that think that they're right all the time, or I think me and my dad are the same in that, where that's what fires us up more than the call itself.
Sure. And Butch, I know one of the things I hear from a lot of youth coaches is, hey, my kid won't listen to me. I need to take my kid to get lessons or instruction somewhere else because the kid just won't, my own son won't listen to me even though I'm knowledgeable. So when KC was growing up, I mean, I think you shared that he played for other coaches. Did you have him in lessons or instruction or camps with someone, even though obviously you're an expert in the field? Did you find it better to have a fresh perspective as far as instruction, or did you handle most of that yourself?
No, of course. I mean, KC hit an age where, he needed to hear some things from somebody else. And I got him lessons. Actually, the gentleman is, I'm not sure if he's still with the Rangers, but he was a AAA hitting coach for the Rangers. And Casey spent some time with him. He, spent some time with, there's nothing wrong with going out and getting, I mean, somebody else's thought process or might say something to kind of like say into Casey's mind or another young man's mind, I hadn't thought about that before, and me listening saying, Casey will tell you, I haven't thought about that before myself. Let's put a shot. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's an awesome thing to be able to get as much knowledge from everybody that you talk to in the game, whether or not you know that they've been in the game for 48 years or not, or they're just like you and they're coaching their son. We just, there's so much about the game that you can learn. I think that's what keeps me going is that I try to learn something new about this game every day. And especially, when the season starts. So, and Casey and I talk. I mean, I learn from my players. I find players from my players that they played with, that they played against. And Casey knows the kind of player I like. I like that player that goes out and he gives everything he's got every single day. And so, I think getting knowledge and giving your son or your daughter that opportunity to hear somebody else every once in a while is a good thing. Really
No, I think that's great. And hopefully all the youth coaches caught that point about, being a student of the game, and regardless of whether you've been in the game 48 years, like you have, constantly learning and going to clinics and watching videos and those types of things, and just committing yourself to continuous improvement. Casey, obviously, you guys are a baseball family. And, when you get together for the holidays, either Thanksgiving, birthday, or whenever your schedules allow you to get together, is it all baseball all the time, or what else do you guys enjoy talking about? What else do you guys enjoy doing as a family other than baseball?
Other than, obviously a lot of it's baseball, but, a big thing we like to do is the last few years we've been, had the opportunity to lease some land and, do some deer hunting, and we fish. And, so other than baseball, I think me and my dad enjoy the same things. We like going out there in the woods and, finding a place to put tree stands, and we like feeding the deer. And so we like the same stuff. So it's not always about baseball. It's not, college football. Obviously, I'm a huge college football fan. My dad played for Alabama, so Roll Tide, obviously. And so we talked, everything that, we kind of our likes are very similar. So really whatever's going on, we'll talk about golf, like we'll talk about my golf swing, or if he's been golfing or whatever. So it's not all work, but baseball's a big part of it because there's so many questions I have, or he'll ask me a question about something that he saw, and if I liked it, or and it's just bouncing stuff off of each other. And I think that's how I've learned so much about the game. And I think that's a great thing, but no, it's not always about baseball.
Sure. And, for you, Butch, going back to baseball, I mean, what are some of your favorite father-son memories, in terms of your time in baseball with Casey involved? I mean, what are some of your favorite memories with your son in the game?
Well, I got a, chance to be in what I was involved in the recruiting process when he was getting recruited. Watching, as draft day was getting here, and I'm managing in Southern Maryland. I started that team in the Atlantic League, and when the draft was going on, so I got to sit there and listen to when his name was called. When he came to play for me in 2016, he came in and just had a tremendous year, and was fortunate that the White Sox picked him up for spring training. And I tell this story all the time, and I think we talked about it the other day, but I'll share it with some of the dads. I mean, me being able to manage my son is pretty cool, especially at the professional level. And then you look at, Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. Having a chance to play together in the Mariners organization. I think they went back-to-back one game. But for me, it was the last game of the season, 2016. Neither team was in the playoffs. I had got this great idea that I went to KC. I said, son, I think I'm going to activate myself on Sunday. I was 65 years old at the time. I said, I'm going to activate myself on Sunday. I'm going to hit second when you hit third, and I'm going to play third while you play first for one inning. And I asked him, he said, "Go for it, Dad." And I did it. And it's something that I'll never forget. It's something that I'm sure that a lot of dads would have loved to have been able to do if their son was playing for them professionally. And it was actually for me, it was a really cool thing.
No,
And don't ask, I struck out.
That's a great story. And KC, for you, for any of the young players that might be listening, talk about the process of getting drafted and that means you and how that go. And I imagine it was a tremendous source of pride for you and your dad and your family. Tell us kind of how that unfolded.
It's so long ago, but really, it's just I've always known I wanted to play professional baseball, and I decided to take my senior year. I had a pretty good junior year baseball wise, and going into the following summer, I started playing travel ball, which I didn't really play before because I was always playing football. And so I decided to not play football my senior year. And even though I was I started on varsity, from my freshman year all the way to my junior year, it would be my fourth year, starting. I thought baseball was a better, route for me, and it worked out. And I went to tournaments, showcases pretty much all, that summer leading up. Went to area codes. And then the reason I didn't play football was really because of scout ball, which was every Wednesday and Saturday. And then, when the draft came, just sit around and wait and talking to at the time he was my advisor. And, it's almost stressful, but I was fortunate enough to be on a really good high school team, and we won our Valley Championship, which is the central section. So luckily, I didn't really have a lot of weight on my shoulders about the draft. I was trying to win it, win games.
No, that makes perfect sense. And Butch, let's go back to you here. Let's talk about your style as a manager. I mean, again, there's a lot of youth coaches out there that are kind of struggling their way through. Am I really in your face? Am I really aggressive? Of course, we all remember Bobby Knight as an icon that's really, aggressive. There's other coaches that are much more passive and kind of let the players run things, so to speak. So, what is your style as a manager, and maybe how has it evolved over the years, to tailor it towards today's player?
Well, I would say that definitely at an older age, I've mellowed out a lot. I was a very aggressive manager because I was a very aggressive player. I believe that the game should be played one way, and that's with everything you've got, every pitch, every at bat. If I don't see that, then it's not. I don't consider myself as a manager that, or even in the past, that is going to embarrass a player. I always felt like that if I have something to say, I'm going to say it to the team as a whole. Trying to single anybody out. If that's the case, it needs to be done, and it's done in your office with the door closed. I just, and my little antics and things with arguing with umpires, and I believe that the game should be handled on both sides, as far as the players and umpires. That I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to do it to the best of my ability. And if I don't get that hustle, and these young players, I try to, I used to with my youth camps and stuff, used to have a T-shirt that said, "There's no excuse for not hustling. You can't make up one." And if I don't see that, then you're going to hear from me. I'm a firm believer that my players need to know how I feel about them every day. I mean, playing for Bear Bryant, on Sundays we would watch game films of Saturday's games, and this gentleman was probably one of the greatest college coaches ever. And we would watch the Saturday game film, and then he'd get up. When Bear Bryant stood up, you could hear a pin drop. I mean, just quiet. And he would be leaving the projection room, and he'd turn around and say, "Guys, call your mama, tell you you're okay, and remember I love every one of you." Every Sunday he did that. And my son will tell you, I'm not afraid to tell my players how I feel about them, that I love them. I'm not. Peter Gammons wrote that that's probably the reason I got fired from the Red Sox, but that's a good reason to get fired.
And Casey, tell us, what's some advice that your dad gave you over the years, either about life or baseball or whatever. I mean, some of the best advice that you got from your dad, as you develop, maybe something that sticks with you today.
I mean, there's so much, but the hustle, give everything you got. Obviously, that mentality definitely has stuck with me, and just the competitiveness and made it false with me. I'm competitive in everything I do. I'll be playing board games and trying to win, and but baseball's like life. It's it's a grind. It's things happen. You have ups and downs, and you just try to my personality is that way too. I just kind of try to not go so high and not be so down, and that's one thing I learned from him. He's like, look, you're gonna have your 0 for 20s. He's like, you can either be depressed and throwing your crap about it, or you can do something on defense, or pick up a teammate who's also struggling, do something to help the team win, even though you're not up to, you're not doing what you think you should be doing. So that really stuck with me. Just you get to grind it out, and every day you have to work hard every single day, no matter if you're feeling good, you're feeling bad. You got to come and be prepared.
Let's shift gears a little bit to the 2020 season here. First of all, Butch, what are you hearing from the league as far as when players might be starting to mobilize, and what's the latest in the American Association and the latest with the Chicago Dogs as far as getting back on the field?
Well, it's the number one as far as getting back on the field. As of right now, we're scheduled for the first week of July is what I'm hearing to open. Where that leads us from spring training, maybe the end of June, or it could be even, it's going to be different in every state. I think we all understand that. But as of the last word I got, we're looking early July with like a 5-day spring training or some shortened spring training to get the season started, I believe. Now, this has not been etched in stone. This is just things that I'm hearing of the possibilities. Sure. That it's possibly going from a 100-game season to an 80-game season. I think the Atlantic League is going from a 140-game season to a 100-game season. And that's another independent league. That's why I'm using that as an example. Because from what I hear, I guess the minor leagues are not going to play at all. I think that decision, for the most part, I'm hearing has been made or is going to be made. But that's where we are as far as what we're standing in. I mean, that's what we're kind of waiting for the final. And I know a lot of that probably can't be made final right now. I think, it's to keep everybody safe. And I think that all of us Americans are doing our best to make sure that we keep our distance and we do the right thing so that we can, moms and dads can get back to work and kids can get back to school and all those things. I mean, I feel so bad for these senior high school players that didn't get to play their senior season. And the senior college players that, didn't get to play their senior year. And I think they might have the opportunity to go back again from what I hear. I don't know that exactly. And some of the kids that were really looking forward to getting drafted and fulfilling their dream to play in the major leagues one day. But I believe we're going to play. And I'm going to keep believing that way. And, like I said, there's nothing. I know that the ownership talks, the league talks every Friday, and there's a lot of things that are going to be done differently. But I'm really hoping, and I believe in that the first week of July we'll be playing some baseball in the American Association.
Sure hope so. That would be awesome to get back on the field. And KC, obviously you're new to the team. For any fans that might be out there listening, tell us a little bit about your game, what the fans might expect out of you this year, some of your goals for the season, and what you're excited about here.
Well, hopefully they can expect to see some homers. But I take pride in my defense playing first base and, help my infielders, because obviously they're going to throw balls in the dirt or up the line, and I try to help them out as much as I can. But I'm a big dude. I'm slow. So really, I'm trying to hit the ball hard. I'm swinging hard in case I hit it. So that's the kind of player I am, and I try to have as much fun as possible. So I'm trying to smile, and I know guys on other teams, and I talk to fans too. So if I'm on the on deck circle, you can go and say hi. I'm not gonna, stonewall you.
Yeah, I think keeping a sense of humor and keeping things light is just so important at all levels of baseball. And Butch, tell us a little bit about Impact Field. Obviously, as a manager in Major League Baseball, and independent baseball, probably been just about every ballpark in the country, perhaps. And tell us what makes Impact Field special and what makes it unique, and what excites you about putting on the uniform every day over there.
Well, when Sean and the village got together and built this beautiful stadium, I really like the open air concept without the canopy. It's in a beautiful setting. I mean, Sean did it right. I mean, we've got AAA clubhouses. Our grounds are excellent. It's a good hitter's park, and it's a fair pitcher's park. It's the Windy City of Chicago. So there's some days that ball's blowing out toward 294 right there, and it goes. But it's a fair park all the way around. I think it's in 2018, I think I was suspended twice for about 3 games each, and so I got one series at home of 3 games. I got to go up in the stands with the fans and meet everybody and talk. And it was being up there watching the game there and from the stands was pretty cool. It's a unique ballpark, and I think it's going to, as we go along. We built a great fan base. The fans there are awesome. They adopted us. For them to be able to go to a ballpark like that and get to know the players, I think it's with that open concept makes it better. But I mean, I would love to be a player and play in that ballpark if I could do it all over again, because it's going to be, they talk about the St. Paul Saints, and what an awesome place. I mean, that place is pretty cool. But Impact Field's on its way to being just that.
And Casey, I know you haven't set foot on the turf there just yet. I'm sure you've seen some pictures, and I know in talking to you beforehand, you're excited about getting out there. As a player, as an athlete, getting ready for spring training here, maybe just a couple, 2-3 weeks out. What are you doing to hone your game and to make sure that when you get that call to report that you're in good shape and ready to go?
Really just trying to play catch, doing some band arm care stuff with Harrison, and we go to the facility. The facility from my house about 15 minutes, and they have what they call a pro batter, which is a machine that projects like a pitcher actually throwing, and they have a hit tracks, and we go in there after taking 15-20 swings off the tee to get loose and just do some drills. We crank that pro batter up, and we'll start it at 90 and crank it all the way up to 100, and just take swings on it, and just to see live pitching. Obviously, not everyone throws 100, but it's just it's good for me to see something that's coming in pretty firm. And just doing as much as we can. We can't really, like I said, we play catch and just arm care and trying to work out at home. Gyms are close here as well, so. Really just the baseball stuff, luckily we're able to go into a facility and hit. So luckily for us, we're able to do some of that. But other than that, just, your basic, long toss, try to stretch it out, and we'll throw in little flat grounds because I am going to try to pitch this year. We'll see how that goes. But, yeah, just, your basic, again, I'm lucky that we have a pro batter that we can hit off of. But, just the basic kind of stuff.
Sure. And Butch, I know part of your responsibility in the off season is onboarding players and talking to players and that type of thing. So can you tell the fans sort of the process of how players are selected to be a part of the Chicago Dogs organization?
Well, we a number of the guys from last year's team are coming back. We have guys like Casey signed with the Dodgers, and DJ Snelton signed with the Rays. He had a really good spring. Barnum, the Independent League Player of the Year, signed with the Nationals, but I just learned that he had he had a pretty, he had a problems with his Achilles all year last year, but he was with the Nationals and he ended up having surgery on his Achilles. So, unfortunately, that's an injury that's going to take a while, which means that whether they play or not, then he give him that off time to heal up. And some players will retire. I mean, Jordan Dean decided. I mean, he had a heck of a year for us last year. He's a local guy. I love him, man. Just a grinder of a baseball player. He wanted to get on with his life. I think he's got a facility that he works at, or his own little program that he does. He loves baseball. He's a baseball player. We have some guys that are still kind of, even though they're on our roster, they're still trying to make up their minds about life. And this, with what's been going on in our world today, kind of compounds that as to where you might really want to see yourself going. There's going to be quite, and I don't like to say this, but it is part of what we do when players get released and they still want to play. They come play independent ball to show organizations that they want to still play and they still got something left in the tank. But it being no spring training, that there's a lot of players that were free agent signs in the offseason that probably aren't going to get much of a chance to make a club with an organization. So you're probably going to see some of those guys surface as players that are available to come play independent ball.
Sure.
It's a matter of keeping your eye on the releases, keeping your eye on the free agents, keeping your eye on, your contacts you've made with agents and with minor league directors that have players that you can trust, that they're the kind of player you want that's got some class about them and that really do the game and play the game the way that it should be played. So it's a process every day. It's been kind of slow this year because there was no spring training and there was no start to the season, but we've got a pretty good nucleus offensively. There's a couple of players that we've signed, but one's from the Dominican. He was a big prospect for the Nationals, and one's from Venezuela. I just don't think that those guys, number one, is the consulates are closed, so we can't get visas approved. And whether or not there's any international flights at that point in time, we don't know that. But we have some local guys. Always like to find the local guys that still want to play to bring into put a Chicago Dogs uniform on them. But we're probably right now on my roster right now, probably 19 guys that have been offered a contract. We'll probably bring 28 to spring training, or we will bring 28 to spring training. Whether or not that roster gets expanded because of the short spring training, I don't know. It's a possibility that might happen for 10 days. So yeah, it's watching and I have players call me and say, look, I got a buddy that just found out he's getting released. He's a lefty, he throws strikes, everything, good things about him. It's always having the door, the phone line open or whatever to try to build the roster.
Definitely some unique challenges with this year, in every level of baseball, obviously. And at this point in the program, what we like to do is take some questions from the audience. I see a couple on my screen right now that will lob out there to you guys, and anyone out there listening, if you have a question for either Butch or KC, now would be a great time to just key that question in. Don't worry about grammar or spelling or anything. We'll do our best to read it, and a good chance for anyone out there listening to ask any question that might be on their mind. And so let me start with a question from Rick Flores. And I guess this looks like it's for you, Butch. How do you stay up for all the games with all the politics and management of the game going on? So I think Rick's maybe getting at, again, today's players and everything with social media and politics, and how do you kind of stay on top of everything?
Well, I have been told that I should be more involved with social media. I really don't. There's just like KC was in the Atlantic League. I was in that league for a long time. There's a lot of different things that they're trying in that league that for both of us, we think are not real smart. And what they're talking about baseball and what to go to, some of the crazy things. Baseball is baseball. It ain't ever going to change. I mean, they talk about speeding the game up and I mean, if it takes 5 hours to play 9 innings, it takes 5 hours to play 9 innings. You know, I just don't see any reason to change the game that we all grew up loving and playing it the way it's supposed to be played. And I know years and years and years ago, some things were changed, but you know, for me, I'm more I'm old school, and old school baseball is just let's go out and play. If it, you know, we got to play 3, let's play 3, whatever.
See, here's maybe an unusual question from a young lady out there in the
I'm
audience.
not.
Are you single?
I'm not single.
All right. She'll probably be disappointed, but I'll go ahead and blow that question out. Let's see here. Let me just I guess this is probably more of a question for you, Butch. What will it take for the Chicago Dogs to win the championship this year?
Well, first thing we got to do is play. That's number one. You know, we had a tremendous year last year. I think we finished 19 games over 500. We missed the playoffs by a couple of games behind St. Paul. You know, we're you know, you can go through a year and be at the top of the league, and then you come down to the playoffs and just have a week or a week and a half of we can't do anything right, and that team that came in 4th place ends up beating you for the championship. We approach every day with, you know, I tell my players when we meet that first meeting in independent ball and before spring training, and I tell the guys that we got 2 jobs here to do. Number one is to get you back to an organization or overseas where you can make some money if that's what you want. Number 2 is win a championship, and that's what we do, and we don't change from that. I fight hard to get my players back to organizations because that's what we're supposed to do in independent baseball. But we're going to go out and try to do everything we can to win a championship for the people in Rosemont, for the people in our area, the dog fans that have been supporting us the first 2 years. That's going to be our process, and it is sometimes, you know, you're in that groove where you're playing good and everything's together. Defense is good, you're hitting good, and pitches is good, and it ends up taking you to a championship. And sometimes you sneak up from the backside. So that's our job, to go out. We're going to try to every day we're going to go out and do what we need to do to try to win championships.
Definitely look forward to seeing it and getting rolling here. And for you, KC, here's a question from Vince. Vince wants to know, at what age did you realize that you were different, special compared to a lot of the other players that are out there?
You know, I would say I always knew I was, you know, probably the best player every time I stepped on the field by the time I was, you know, 10 or 11. I didn't really think of it as a special thing until I got, you know, much older in high school, where I was like, okay, you know, I have a chance to play professionally, and a lot of guys aren't even get to play again. So I think that's when I really, you know, understood, you know, how special and how blessed I am, you know, just to be talented. And obviously I put a lot of hard work into it. But, you know, I would say probably in high school is when I really figured out, I was like, okay, I have something that a lot of people don't have, not just, you know, the kids I'm playing in, you know, Cal Ripken or Little League or whatever. So I'll say probably about high school I figured that out.
Sure. No. And Butch, let me get up here. Lou would like to know, how do you separate, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but how do you separate the dad versus manager relationship when coaching your son?
Well, those are always tough questions for every coach, I think, at the youth level, or even at the, you know, older travel ball level. You know, I as long as I have the confidence and the faith in that coach that he's going to treat my son or my daughter right, you know, I'm not going to have any issues. I mean, I welcome. I mean, I want everybody. I want the parents to enjoy what their son or their daughter are doing. I want them to be involved in all the the celebrating, and even through the down times when things are going. And I just, I just always looked for that coach to, and I think it definitely was different in KC's fault because of not who I was, but what I had done in the game and managing the major leagues and playing the major leagues. And I never wanted that coach to feel intimidated by that. But just wanted that coach to teach my son. And, there's a lot of things like we talked about earlier that a coach can teach my son or somebody's son or daughter where I missed out somewhere. Maybe I missed something, and that's just an extra thing to help him or be better the next
Yeah,
day.
well, no, I think that's really great insight, and just looking at a lot of the comments here, in addition to questions, a lot of fans are just KC really excited to have you part of the team, and Butch really excited to see the team on the field. A lot of well wishes here from fans, but that's all the time we have here for today on Talking Baseball. But once again, I'd like to thank Butch Hobson and KC Hobson for joining us here on Talking Baseball. As we mentioned earlier, baseball will be back at Impact Field soon, and we look forward to seeing all the fans out there. Remember, folks, take a bite and no ketchup.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Rich. Good to see you, bud.
Bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll see you soon.
All right, Dad.
All right.